Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Right off the bat, we're diving into that universal, mild panic of blanking on someone's name. You know the exact feeling, right? The face is totally intimately familiar, but the name is just gone. Literally nowhere to be found. Today, we're going to unpack the cognitive psychology and evolutionary biology behind this whole phenomenon. We'll explore why this massive disconnect in our neural pathways is actually a sign that your brain's processing hierarchy is working exactly the way it's supposed to.
So let's start with Section 1, the universal name blank, or as I like to call it, the party panic.
Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this scenario. You lock eyes with someone at a work event or maybe a dinner party. You instantly recognize their face. You effortlessly recall the nuances of your last conversation. You even remember their specific mannerisms. But as you walk over to say hi, their name is completely inaccessible. It sparks this immediate negative self-talk while you fumble for some generic greeting like, "Hey, you." But seriously, why does this happen? Why do we invariably forget the name but remember the face? Why is there such a massive cognitive disconnect between these two seemingly linked pieces of information? You can vividly recall the exact geometry of their features, yet the simple phonetic sound they use to identify themselves has just vanished.
Moving into Section 2, not a bad memory. Let's completely reframe the problem here. I want you to take a deep breath and really internalize this. You do not have a bad memory. Seriously. When you blank on a name, your very first instinct is usually to assume there's a glitch in your neural circuitry. You think your mental filing cabinet is falling apart. But actually, scratch that. This is just cognitive economy in action. It's a feature, not a bug. Your memory isn't failing you. It's being ruthlessly efficient. Our brains use these heuristics, these mental shortcuts, to prioritize survival-critical data over arbitrary social labels. We only have so much cognitive bandwidth, right? So the brain has to constantly make subconscious decisions about what to encode deeply and what to just let slide. Blaming your memory for dropping a name is kind of like blaming a high-performance computer for deleting a temporary file just to save processing power for the main operating system.
To truly get this, we have to look at facial recognition specialization. From an evolutionary standpoint, your brain has adapted over millions of years to dedicate prime cognitive real estate entirely to processing human faces. Specifically, there's this region in the inferior temporal cortex called the fusiform gyrus, which contains the fusiform face area, or the FFA. See, your brain isn't just an egalitarian filing cabinet where all data gets treated equally. No way. It is a highly specialized survival machine. It actively prioritizes faces because, historically speaking, recognizing an ally versus an enemy was literally a matter of life and death. The neural pathways dedicated to analyzing faces are robust, they are incredibly fast, and they are deeply entrenched in our biology. Plus, they operate completely independently from the systems we use to recall language and vocabulary.
Which brings us to Section 3, the richness of faces. Decoding visual data.
What's really interesting about this slide is how the brain treats these points as an instant, massive data download the second you look at someone. A face isn't just a static image, it's a high-density data package. Within milliseconds of eye contact, your brain executes complex parallel processing. First up, demographic estimation, assessing age, health, and genetic background to rapidly figure out the social dynamics. Second, emotional state. Your brain is reading micro-expressions to determine intent, safety, or threat. Are they aggressive, receptive, fearful? And finally, identity verification. It's matching the current visual input against a massive internal database of known individuals. All of this dense, survival-critical information is decoded seamlessly before you even have time to consciously formulate a thought. The visual cortex and the limbic system are just working in absolute overdrive to ensure you know exactly who you're dealing with.
Section 4, images versus labels. Welcome to the Cognitive Processing Showdown.
When we compare how the brain processes these two inputs, there's a clear asymmetric memory encoding at play here. The brain processes rich visual images significantly faster and way more effectively than arbitrary text labels. Think about it. A face is deeply semantic. It connects to an intricate web of meaning, emotions, context, past interactions. A name, like John or Sarah, on the other hand, is literally just an arbitrary phonetic tag. It inherently lacks any real semantic hooks. In cognitive psychology, this phenomenon is perfectly illustrated by the Baker-Baker paradox. Studies show that it's much easier for a person to remember that someone is a baker by profession than to remember that their last name is Baker. Why? Well, because the occupation of a baker carries a rich web of associations. You picture bread, an apron, an oven, early mornings. It hooks into existing knowledge. But the capitalized name baker? That's just a detached string of letters. Because your brain is a highly efficient machine operating on cognitive economy, it eagerly absorbs the rich semantic web of the face, but frequently drops the isolated, arbitrary label of the name. It simply doesn't have enough surrounding context to lock it into long-term memory during a super brief introduction.
So, what does this all mean? Should we stop judging our memories based on arbitrary labels? Absolutely, for sure. The next time you blank on a name, silence that negative inner monologue. Instead, take a second to appreciate the literal biological supercomputer inside your skull. In a fraction of a second, it successfully downloaded massive visual data, verified a unique human identity, and decoded complex emotional states. It did all the heavy lifting. It just dropped a meaningless phonetic tag along the way to conserve bandwidth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Next time you're at a party and the name totally escapes you, ask yourself, what other crucial data is your brain prioritizing without you even realizing it? See you next time.